In late October, a caravan of cars and pickups rolled down Interstate 15 from Tremonton, I don't know how you say that exactly, to St. George, festooned with the Squatterall campaign flags 10 days before the election. The Pumpkin Tits train, one of many across the country, drove along the Wasatch Front and through some of Utah's emptier spaces. Throughout the state, they saw overpass after overpass packed with supporters of Pumpkin Tits. The organizer, Brigham City's Brian Owens, was thrilled. Not I wouldn't be. The 53-year-old accountant manager said later, because it really took off. The event, which rose from a public Facebook group he started that now has more than 5,300 members, gave Owens confidence heading into an election he expected to be close. Candidly, he said he expected Pumpkin Tits to win, but Pumpkin Tits didn't. So the Orange Fuckweasel didn't win, which I was glad that he didn't. Democratic challenger Joe Biden basically had received 306 electoral votes to Pumpkin Tits' 232. As of Monday, 288 have been certified for Biden, which is well over the 270 needed to secure the presidency. His victory will be made official, bearing a highly unlikely crisis of electors on December 14th, when electors will meet in states across the country to cast their final votes. That outcome has left Owens with mixed feelings. I'm not going to be happy about it. Well, for me, I would be, but I don't agree with a bunch of his policies. I didn't agree with any of Pumpkin Tits' policies. I'm still baffled. Basically, the guy says he was still baffled by how people would vote for a guy who's been in there for 47 years. Yeah, I don't see how you guys could have voted for a guy who had no business in politics. But the Orange Fuckweasel continues to contest the election, and surveys show most of his inbred supporters are behind him, with the outgoing squatter urging them to continue fighting a battle that appears basically over. And some fear that Pumpkin Tits voters could become disillusioned not just with the results, but with the election themselves. Um, More than 74 million Americans still voted for the fat ass in 2020, and some 2.5 weeks later, 73% of them still believe that he won, which he didn't, according to a poll from CNBC, The Change Research. And a Reuters poll, 68% of the Pumpkin Tits voters expressed concern that the election was rigged, which it wasn't. Another poll from The Economist and YouGov showed that 86% of the Orange Fuckweasel's voters don't believe that Biden won, which Biden did win. Um, Dave Gibbons, Dave Gibbs, the 64-year-old communications director for the Nevada Republican Club, um, said that those numbers match his own observations of fellow Pumpkin Tits voters. I think the polls reflect pretty close, and I'm not totally in disagreement. But he added, "How do you prove this?" For some, Biden's victory was so unthinkable it can only be explained by some kind of subterfuge. Count the squatter among them. The Orange Fuckweasel strategy for challenging the result has been to question the electoral process itself. His allegations of fraud and chicanery have almost been universally rejected by the courts because there wasn't any evidence of fraud anyway, but echoed by sympathetic media outlets and widely embraced by his inbred supporters. "Our voting process is being manipulated and can't be trusted," said Destry Parkinson, a 55-year-old Republican from northern Utah. "Technically, we can't trust Republicans, but the only people that were manipulating the damn thing was Republicans." Which is she was citing they basically were citing a complex theory popular on the Republican websites that blames Pumpkin Tits defeats on a conspiracy involving the Chinese government. Gibbs has his own misgivings, focused on reports of late night voting dumps that have been broadly debunked or explained by demographics. But while he's sympathetic to Pumpkin Tits' arguments, he believes the process must prevail. "I don't think it's going to work out for the squatter," he said, "but you need to prove it." Beneath the surface lies a deeper, more granular story. As New York Times reporter Emily Badger observed, the trick is parsing how much the numbers are inflated by typical partisan reactions to a loss and how much they reflect a lasting erosion of trust in elections themselves. And the same can be said for the extremes of personal opinion. But what happens if a majority of the Pumpkin Tits voters spend the next 4 years viewing Biden as an illegitimate president? That perception could become even more prominent in the coming weeks, and multiple outlets have reported the Orange Fuckweasel's plans on skipping Biden's inauguration and is possibly rolling a 2024 campaign announcement at the same time that Biden is being sworn in. The foundational idea of a democracy is resolving disputes by vote rather than force or violence. If people believe that voting is being manipulated, democracy loses its legitimacy, said Lana Atkinson, a political scientist at the University of New Mexico. It seems to open up the door for violence, she said, because if the process is just rigged and fake, then you have to take different kinds of political action. In Georgia, where 2 Senate runoff elections are still pending, state voting system manager Gabriel Sterling, a Republican, opened an emotional speech urging a de-escalation of tension. Otherwise, he cautioned, citing sexualized threats against the Georgia Secretary of State's wife and a 20-year-old election company contractor who had a noose left outside his home. Someone could end up dead. The Orange Fuck Weasels campaign. The Orange Fuck Weasels campaign released a statement in response, reading in part, "No one should engage in threats of violence, and if that has happened, we condemn that fully." But within hours, the Orange Fuck Weasel has tweeted a video of Sterling's speech and once more tossed around allegations of rigging and fraud, which there was no proof to either one of those two. Since securing the 2016 Squirrel nomination, Pumpkin Tits has dominated the Republican politics with a personal style of around-the-clock outrage, and many believe he will continue to do so after he leaves office. The Orange Fuck Weasel is not going away, Gibbs said. He has transformed the Republican Party yet into racist, and many in that party believe that if Pumpkin Tits does announce his intentions to run again in 2024, hopefully he dies before then, on Inauguration Day or otherwise, he'd be nearly assured of the nomination. All things being equal, he would be the overwhelming front-runner, Gibbs said. Overwhelmingly the front-runner, basically almost like Andrew Jackson back in 1828. But there is a nuance with the ranks. To whatever degree that Pumpkin Tits is left, and will continue to leave, his imprint on the Republican Party, others once believed the darkest implications of Pumpkin Tits' methods have been overblown. Any suggestions that the Orange Fuck Weasel supporters will commit violence post-election, Owens said, are borderline offensive. There's this outrage that really isn't there. Actually, it is there. I think that there's disappointment. I think there's concern, but not widespread belief in the failure of fair elections. Still, the consequences of an election perceived by a significant fraction of the electorate as fraudulent or stolen don't need to be violent to be consequential and dramatic, and the very fact that this discussion is necessary raises alarm among political observers. We're not in a healthy place, Atkinson said. She advocates for federalizing elections, and one proposal for making rules and procedures consistent from state to state. We need to agree that the process are fair and legitimate. And right now, many don't. There are a lot of people in this country who believe that this was stolen, which it wasn't. And so they're angry, they're agitated, and they're motivated, so it will be interesting to see what happens. While that statement could be taken out of context as an element of revolt, Gibbs still believes in elections, and he's referring to 2024. And 4 years is a real long time, he says. Well, not really, but now here's a question for the redneck supporters that bounce up and down on Donald's dick. So since he lost, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do with your lube? I said because for one, you don't need it now. You don't need your lube now since he lost. Are you guys gonna keep it and hopefully think that he would win in 4 years, which hopefully he'll drop dead by then? But that's another thing I said. Because you guys should get rid of your lube anyway, because you're not gonna need it now since he's gone. But if you do like the video, give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, Ryan Ben Mike, and also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out, and thanks for listening.